Everdark, Episode 89, Older Brother. Last on Everdark, Balthazar carries Elgar to a mysterious bowl where his fledgling is submerged in blood in order to restore him. We now turn back to Julian and Damon. Julian shifted from foot to foot outside the doors of Ravenscroft Manor. He got up on his toes to catch sight of the long line of graceful black Mercedes SUVs that were taking Christian, Balthazar, and their other friends from the Calais Gate to Solace. Back here. Damon put a gentle hand on Julian's shoulder and let out a small chuckle at his impatience. One would think you had not seen Christian in years. It has only been a few hours, Damon teased.
Yeah, but there are tons of things I want to tell him about what's happened since then, so it feels like forever.
Julian did blush, though. Would he tell Christian about what happened with the tentacles? He wasn't sure yet, though he knew that Christian would hear about it. Eyros vampires were really gossipy. He supposed that came from the mind-reading and controlling parts of their personalities. No secrets among Eyros that were not eagerly sought out. Julian went on.
Christian and I have this company where we go out and report on the mysterious, magical, or monstrous of the world. I don't feel like a thing is real until I've talked to him about it. Then whatever has happened makes sense in a way that it didn't before to me. It's almost like...
Julian helplessly lifted his arms to his sides.
Well, Christian is an integral way for me to process the world.
Damon listened in that intense way of his, which Julian knew meant he wasn't only hearing what Julian was saying, but was picking up memories, feelings, and more from his mind about him and Christian. He was a little surprised that this didn't bother him. Damon was, in essence, rifling through the most intimate parts of himself in order to understand him. And maybe that's why it didn't bother him. Because Damon was doing it to understand. It wasn't just idle interest, or a need to ferret out every secret, which he thought some of the Eyros had to do. It was to understand him, and care for him better. He felt sort of honored that Damon would want to do this for him. Finally, Damon nodded. I think that Christian will have much to tell you as well. Balthazar has insisted I not... Damon's face scrunched as if he couldn't quite believe he was having to say the next word. Peek into his mind or anyone else's in the vehicles. Julian let out a laugh. It caused the night insects to quiet their chirrings as they were disturbed by this bright sound.
He wants to surprise you.
Julian shook his head in amusement.
I imagine it's hard to surprise him, so he must value it when it happens.
Damon frowned. Eyros does not like surprises at all. He has always wanted to know. Now he wishes me not to, and yet you think this is a good thing.
It must be a good surprise, Damon. He wouldn't hide something from you that was bad. He'd tell you right away, and then hide behind your skirts.
Julian smirked.
I think we all would.
Damon's forehead bunched. I wear no skirts. I have on pants. Then the Vampire King laughed, totally amused by his own joke.
Now that I understand you a little better, these moments where you claim not to understand something are going to become less and less believable.
Julian shook his head, though he was smiling. Damon slipped an arm over his shoulders and pulled him near. There are many things I do not understand. One may know facts. One may even know customs, but there is a gap that needs to be bridged, something that requires more familiarity.
Well, you're picking things up so fast.
Julian praised him. I must understand this world if I am to rule it, Damon answered. Julian's eyes widened, even as his mouth opened to ask what Damon meant by that. Surely Damon couldn't mean what he had said so flatly. One couldn't just determine to rule the world and act like it would happen, could one? And then Julian remembered what Damon had done in Solace. But that was turning vampires mortal again. That wouldn't work against humans with their weapons. But though he had 1,000 questions, and maybe even more concerns, he didn't get to ask them. As the gates to the Ravenscroft estate opened, and the line of SUVs pulled in, and the lead car drove up to them. The SUV's windows were all tinted so dark as to be impossible to see inside. Julian guessed that meant a vampire could travel in these during the day, though it would seem an awfully fragile shell to be in when sunlight was just inches or less away. The back passenger door to the first SUV flew open, and Christian got out. He was grinning from ear to ear. Julian blinked. Of all the expressions on his best friend's face, this one of uncomplicated joy was rarest. It wasn't just that Christian didn't feel it often, but it was something he did not show to others. But this burst of emotion was clear for all to see. Christian immediately came to him and hugged him tightly.
"I've got so much to tell you."
Christian's voice was muffled as he spoke against Julian's shoulder.
"Whoa, now you got me all excited here."
Julian laughed. "No telling, Christian." Balthazar's voice came from the SUV. "It's a surprise for Damon." The Vampire King's eyebrows rose. "You are making me all excited here too, Eyros." Christian broke off the hug to grasp Damon's nearest arm, which was also rare. Christian actually wanting to touch someone? Julian tried to think of the times that Christian had touched Damon. They were rare indeed. The Vampire King clearly realized how momentous this was too, and he gently caressed Christian's cheek, a sign of infinite affection. Christian ducked his head.
"I hope you like this." "No, I know you will."
Christian said softly to Damon, more eyebrow-raising. "I am all agog. Please, do not let this painful expectation continue, Eyros." "Hold on a moment. There's shyness involved here," Balthazar called back, and then clearly speaking to someone else in the vehicle. "You must get out first. I want him to see you." "No, it doesn't matter what my position is. I want this. Now, go on." Julian peered into the darkness of the SUV interior, but though his night vision made the low light inside as bright as the sun, he only saw Balthazar sitting beside a figure that was wrapped in what looked like a black shroud, with a skull on his or her lap. "I think we should leave the skull here for now." Balthazar tried to take the skull, which had fangs, from the shrouded figure, but the figure moved it out of Balthazar's grabbing range, drawing it into the folds of material, protesting, "No, master, please. I must keep it. It is a relic." "Yes, but I really don't want Damon to be reminded of death right now," Balthazar pleaded. "He won't be. He will understand," the shrouded figure said. Julian turned toward Christian.
"Who is that?"
Christian looked up at him, eyes shining.
"You know when I wished I had an older brother?"
Julian's eyebrows were the ones to climb now.
"Yeah, and we talked about how weird that would be, as it would have required your mother to have a child that she hid from you, and—" "Yes, I know, but now I have one. More than one, but this is the first one."
Christian told him.
"And I thought I had things to tell you."
Julian let out a huff of laughter.
"This is beyond me."
Julian glanced up at Damon then. The Vampire King's gaze was riveted to the open door. Slowly, Damon approached it. He still thought of vehicles akin to tombs, so Julian wasn't altogether sure if it was the vehicle or what was inside that was making him so careful. "Could it be?" Damon murmured. "Could it?" The shrouded figure finally emerged from the SUV. Their face was covered up with the shroud. Damon halted a few feet away. His red eyes glowed. His nostrils flared. He was drawing in this being's scent, which was rather rank. "Take off the hood, for goodness sake," Balthazar was saying to the figure as he got out of the vehicle himself. "I'm going to burn that as soon as you get in the bath. It's completely unsalvageable. And, what are you doing now?" The figure had dropped to his knees and was prostrating himself before Damon. Balthazar blinked down at him, and then his gaze rose to Damon. "Should we be bowing? I'm a little tired to bow, but I will, if you would like," Balthazar said, eyes clearly pleading that he didn't want to get the knees of his pants filthy. Damon smiled at him. "No, indeed. Stay standing." He went over to Balthazar, cupped his face, and kissed his forehead in friendly fashion. "It is good to have you back at my side, and you have brought me someone. Someone I think I know, but it would be too good a thing to hope for." He looked down at the still kneeling figure. "Please, get up, little one." "I am unworthy to be standing in your presence," the figure said, forehead still pressed to the ground. "That could never be true, Elgar. It is you, isn't it? My king." Elgar's voice was full of emotion. Damon dropped down and grasped Elgar's biceps. He gently brought the figure to his feet, and then slowly pulled back the hood to reveal a delicate-featured man with a scholar's brow and something almost elfish in his ears and cheekbones. He had long black hair that fell well below his mid-back. "We used the bowl thing in the basement of the spire," Balthazar said, "and my skull. That seemed to work wonders on him. He's only a little thin now, which doesn't show at all the amount of time he hibernated."
Hibernated?
Julian said the word like it had a piquant taste.
He's been hibernating in the ground since the war, when Eyros fell,
Christian added.
Oh, wow,
Julian felt lost. "That is good, Eyros. I assumed that Seer helped," Damon murmured as he looked down intently into Elgar's face as if he was seeing a ghost.
"I did indeed, my king,"
Seer said, as she and Sophia emerged from the second SUV. She looked so much better, and the dress she was wearing made her appear like a queen. She drew in a deep breath of night air.
"Oh, Balthazar, your garden is momentous."
"It's rather nice, yes." Arceus was quite behind the design. Night-blooming plants and plenty of herbs. Balthazar shook himself. "Yes, well, not important, but thank you, Seer."
"I cannot wait to see your home here."
Seer raised her head and appeared to be looking at the house, even though her eyes were bound by a silk band. But Julian had no doubts that she was truly seeing everything.
"I think your kitties will be so happy here, Sophia, with their friends."
The last had her lips curling into a playful smile, which had Balthazar frowning. "I said 2 cats. That's it. 2. Balthazar called out the reminder.
He is so losing this battle,
Julian murmured to Christian. Christian gave him an impish smile.
"I want 2 of my own."
Seer came over and kissed Damon's cheek.
"Sophia will show me the garden while you bond. Then we can speak when you are ready."
"And I must introduce you to Christian's mummy and daddy,"
Sophia said, using those childlike terms that sort of hurt to hear, because they indicated how she had viewed parents when she had been turned. Seer's mouth opened in an O.
"Parents, of course. It has been so long since we have had human parents alive who know the truth. They must be extraordinary people."
Where are my parents?
Christian gazed around as if they were hiding someplace.
I want them to meet Elgar too. They slept late because they wanted to be sure to be awake all tonight.
Julian told him.
Don't worry, they'll be able to meet everyone.
Christian relaxed and smiled. "Perhaps another drink too, Seer?" Balthazar suggested. "My acolytes are your acolytes." Seer put a hand on her chest.
"Oh, that would be so kind, Balthazar. Thank you."
"Sophia, you know where everyone is? I assume you have a bedroom all picked out for Seer." It was clear from Balthazar's tone that he believed his own room would go to her, with Sophia's penchant for picking the absolute best spots.
"We're going to share. I cannot be away from my mistress. I will sleep at her feet."
Sophia sounded over the moon as she said this, so Julian just shook his head in amazement. He didn't know if he would be so eager to sleep at Damon's feet. Sleep beside him, yes, but at his feet? Maybe not. That sounds grand. Balthazar sounded thrilled. He had saved his bedroom after all. Julian hid a smirk as Sophia and Seer went off into the manor. He turned to Christian.
It doesn't look like you're going to be sleeping on couches after all. I am a little relieved at that, but there is plenty of room in the manor,
Christian said, then frowned.
Well, sort of. You should have a room in the house and not in the guest cottage.
We do not have enough room, Christian, Balthazar said dryly. We need gracious open spaces. Arceus? He called that over his shoulder at where the confessor was leaving the third SUV. He was assisting Fiona and Lizette out of it.
Yes, Balthazar?
Arceus called back. We need to contact our architect and builder and all that. We need more room. Perhaps not only an extension, but another house entirely. The manor will become a compound. Balthazar looked pleased. Elgar will need his own area. Elgar's silver eyes widened. Oh, no, master. I do not need anything so grand. Just a little space to sleep and Small desk will be sufficient, Balthazar snorted. Shall I make you a cupboard beneath the stairs? Elgar did not recognize the Harry Potter reference and instead said, That will be quite sufficient. Nice and snug. Balthazar put a hand up to his forehead. No, Elgar, it will not be. You will have a suite of rooms of your own. For now, you will take Christian's old bedroom as he sleeps with me. Suddenly, as if realizing what he had just said, Balthazar quickly clarified with Christian. You find that suitable, yes? Otherwise, I will find Elgar another room.
That would be wasteful. You're correct that yours is now ours. Besides, it'll keep Elgar near us. I think that's best, don't you?
Christian said again with that surprising eagerness. Elgar brightened, and at the same time looked rather overwhelmed. Julian asked out of the side of his mouth,
So, who is Elgar? He's...
Christian began, but then Damon cut him off. Eyros' second, Damon said as he gazed down upon that diffident scholar's face. The whisperer. Damon had been strangely silent as he had gazed upon Elgar. Julian hadn't been jealous. This was not a romantic thing. Damon's expression mirrored his thoughts. Something precious had been restored that he had thought lost, and he seemed sad too, as if Elgar's presence brought to his mind the absence of others. Elgar lowered his head as Damon continued to regard him, looking shy. Julian didn't understand what a second was, let alone his moniker.
Elgar is one of Eyros' fledglings. He's like his second in command,
Christian explained, his eyes still glowing.
But another of Eyros' fledglings?
Julian's eyebrows were now completely in his hairline.
That's,
He lowered his voice.
You're okay with that? Of course. An older brother, like I said.
Christian enthused. This older brother thing had happened just before Julian's parents had died. While he and Julian had been allowed to go most places they wanted to, there was some, like the Western Woods, or the closed amusement park called Haven's Canyon, where they had not been allowed to go, and where the Thorns had not wanted to accompany them. So Christian had wished for an older brother. This older brother would be old enough to take them to these places and others. Somehow Christian had never imagined that such an older brother wouldn't want to hang with them, let alone accompany them on their adventures as chaperone. Instead, this imagined older brother had been incredibly tolerant and loving. Julian hadn't had the heart to remind Christian of the older siblings of their friends, who wouldn't have been caught dead hanging out with a younger sibling. Now it appeared that the long-forgotten dream of an elder sibling had returned, but this time in the form of a fledgling. Christian and Julian, perhaps you would like to take Elgar to his room to get settled in, and perhaps show him how the plumbing all works? Balthazar suggested. Damon and I have to talk. My phone blew up when I got back here, and we are going to be expecting guests. Lots of guests. That is a good idea. Damon gently urged Elgar to him. I wish you to become good friends with Julian. Elgar's silver eyes alighted on Julian, and Julian found himself straightening. Elgar was the last thing like a drill sergeant or anything like that. He seemed diffident, scholarly and gentle, someone who would become lost in a book and not remember to eat. He likely would be the type of older brother who would have no problem accompanying them on their adventures, so long as he could bring something to read. But with one glance, Julian realized he'd been seen. There was a keen and incredible mind behind those eyes, one who understood things and understood him. Elgar might appear dreamy, diffident, and scholarly, but he was so much more than that. But Elgar must have found him not to be wanting, because a smile, so tender and gentle, crossed his features. Oh, my king, he is beautiful, strong and brave, exactly what he should be, Elgar murmured. You honor me beyond words to be with him. But a prince should be served. He should not serve me. Julian went over to Elgar. He reached out to take one of the slender hands, the one not cradling the skull, and linked it with his own.
Elgar, Damon is king, but I'm just...
Julian met Damon's gaze. No, he wasn't just anyone. Even if he didn't feel himself worthy of such accolades yet, he was the fledgling of the Vampire King. So he amended what he was going to say.
I think that part of being a prince means to serve the people that he helps rule.
Very good, fledgling. You do rule them. Damon sent with approval.
Yeah. I'm getting better, I guess, in understanding what my new position is.
Julian agreed. Elgar took Julian's hand while cradling the Scully with the other. It was the first time that Damon had taken notice of it. He frowned. Elgar, may I see that? Damon asked. Elgar handed it out after half a second's hesitation, which was long for him in denying Damon anything. So the skull was very important to him. We really need a box for that, or something. Balthazar's lips flattened.
Whose skull is that?
Julian asked. It's mine. Balthazar sighed. Julian started.
Yours?
Yes, it's magical. But more importantly, Balthazar's eyes slid to Elgar and he looked a little sad. Elgar is not quite ready to give it up. I will never let it go. I will honor it. Keep it safe, Elgar murmured. Julian felt a fragility with Elgar's mind then, and he cast a concerned look at Christian. His best friend's face reflected empathy. Damon held the skull in both hands and gazed into the eye sockets. His expression was blank at first, but his thoughts roiled. His expression hardened. His lips writhed back from his teeth to show his fangs were out. His eyes blazed magma-like. When he spoke, his voice was calm, and yet his tone chilled Julian. I will never allow such a thing to happen again. Those responsible for this war will pay for it. Join us next time for episode 90, New Things.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.